All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining this month's Variety Hour. We are very pleased to welcome four speakers today that presented their work at ICTC earlier in 2026 in February. This talk will be shared between three short talks of 5 to 7 minutes from Julien, Kinley, and Ruthmery. We are good to get it started, and to start with Julien, who will bring us to the Amazon and to this fantastic technology that is the Limelight. Julien, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. I did not introduce myself in the chat yet, but I'll do it after my presentation. I'm Julien. I work in Sherbrooke, Quebec, Canada. I'm a French-speaking Canadian, so that's why I have a big accent like that. But I'll do my best. So I will present a big project that we did at Outreach Robotics. We were really lucky to participate in the X Prize rainforest competition. And I'm going to show you today what Outreach did for the winning team, which is Limelight Rainforest. It is also the same presentation I did at the ICTC in Peru. So the X Prize Rainforest, for the one that you don't know what it is, it's a global 5-year competition in which the teams were asked to monitor 100 hectares of tropical forest in 24 hours. And we had to write a report in 48 hours after that with all the information that we gathered. We needed to create some insights in between them and bring a report to the X Prize team. And we had one major constraint, is because we were not allowed to go physically in the forest. So we had to deploy everything, every sensor, every technical aspect to gather some information. We had to deploy by drones or by remote stuff. So Outreach Robotics is an engineering firm in Quebec, and we were asked by Limelight Rainforest team to develop all the hardware and all the stuff that will be put in the canopy in the forest to then assess all the situation of this forest. So what we did is we developed a couple of things. The main thing is the raft, the canopy raft. So it is the structure in the center of the screen. The canopy raft is a carbon structure which was deployed by a big drone, the one on the right. This drone was able to fly 45 minutes, and it has a big payload capacity. And we also designed a custom delivery claw on the left with some electronic case, carbon fibers, and also servo motors, and also 3D printed stuff to drop those rafts into the canopy, so we could leave them there for 24 hours and then gather them after that. We also developed a custom winch to drop water sampling and a surface sampling that I'm going to talk about a bit later. So in the raft, we had two payloads, two types of payloads. For the competition purposes, we had a specimen collection, which is intrusive, and we had a camera trap, which is non-intrusive in the forest. So it was two kind of solution to gather some information about insects. So the first, it's the specimen collection, which had two different type of strap. Those straps are I think it's common to be used to gather some insects. So there was the Malay trap and a pitfall. And the camera trap, it was set up with a camera and a panel and some LED lights that were flashing to attract the insect. And it took a picture every 30 seconds. And in 16 hours of sampling, we were able to gather about 7,000 images. And we were able to crop almost 500,000 insects. On each of those rafts, we had also some acoustic trackers. So we had our own system. It's an array of microphones. On each structure, there were 8 microphones positioned in all the corners, like you see on the left. And with those with those acoustic tracker, we were able to triangulate every sound, bird sound that we could hear. By triangulating them, we were able to position where the sound came from. And with multiple RAF, we had 10 in total in the 100 hectares of the plot survey. We were also able to triangulate and position exactly where that sound came from. So this new feature, it helped us to gather some really nice insight. We have one example here. You can see all the RAF where they were positioned, and you can we were able to assess like a kind of a small competition in between two types of toucan. And this is just an example of where we hear the sound of the toucan, but we were also able to track them. So if those toucans were flying and together, for example, we could see their movement around the map, and we could see like where they stop for sleeping, where they stop to eat, or where they go to eat. But we could see also some clear definition, like this line, this white line here, where the white-throat toucan did not want to bother his friend, the channel-billed toucan, and this is the kind of insight that we put in the report afterwards. So this acoustic trackers was all developed in Sherbrooke with Outreach Robotic, and also in from a lab in the University of Sherbrooke. So we had also two other types of hardware that we used to gather some eDNA information. We had the surface sampling and the water sampling. So those two surface sampling methods help us gather some eDNA information, and we were able to gather some water if we it was really difficult to find the water in the plot, but as soon as we found it, we were able to sample like almost 54 liters of water. In the end of this competition, we were able also to manufacture and make hardware that is commercially available. This is the EntoCam and the EntoBeam. It's based on the idea of the camera trap system that was deployed in the raft, and now you can buy this system. It's off the shelf, and you can take some pictures of the insects in your area. And it's based on a hunting camera. You also have a attractant light, and it's 0 to 20 watts attractant light that you can adjust as you will. So at Outreach, we do multiple stuff. We like robotic and also environment. And I had a video of about 2 minutes, but I don't think I have time now to show it. I'm gonna put it in the chat so you can watch it.
Thank you so much, Julien. Yeah, please share this video in the chat, and thank you for sharing your amazing words with robots. We don't have time for questions, so we are moving already to the next one. But if you have any question for Julien and everything Outreach Robotics is doing, please ask them in the chat, and he will be happy to answer. Thank you, Julien.
Thank you.
Next on the line is Kinley, who will present their amazing work on bioacoustics. So Kinley, please, the floor is yours.
Great. So my name is Kinley Ragan, and I'm the Field Research Project Manager at the Arizona Center for Nature Conservation, Phoenix Zoo in Arizona in the United States. So today I'm going to share with you a brief summary about our wonderful team's real-time acoustic detection system that's solar-powered, remotely deployed, utilizes mesh-based communications over LoRa, and leverages machine learning. So we work in Central America in southern Costa Rica, specifically in La Amistad International Park, which, like many other conservation parks globally, has high biodiversity, but a small team running everything from research to tourism to security. And not to mention the terrain in the region makes research and monitoring even more challenging. Our work originally started with a need from the national park to help with anti-poaching efforts by developing real-time gunshot detection acoustic sensors by Dr. Garth Payne at Arizona State University. But the initial success and lessons learned from that project really got us excited for what more we could do in real time. And it came to the solution of looking at other endangered species like the three-wattled bellbird, which officials in the region wanted to track the arrival time patterns of the bellbird and the presence in the forest with relationship to potential climate change impacts. So we designed a node, which is featured here, that listens for three-wattled bellbirds, chestnut-mandibled toucans, and gunshots in the rainforest. And how this system works is we have these nodes here, which we think of as ears, and they're constantly listening for the specific sound that they're trained on. When that sound is detected, they send a packet of information via LoRa, long-range radio frequencies, to the brain or the gateway. And the gateway then uploads this information via cell service to the cloud. So if we imagine this system now in the forest, a gunshot or a bellbird is heard in the forest, the nearest nodes hear that sound, identify it, and then send a packet of features and location information to the gateway, which the gateway uploads it to the cloud, and we get that detection in real time. So in 2025, we worked with OWL integrations to eliminate topographic barriers in our system, like the mountain and the terrains. So we deployed OWL integrations DuckLink protocol, which allows for a self-healing mesh-based communication network, and nodes can now pass messages through each other to get around difficult terrain and get the signal out in challenging areas. So the bellbird detection can now be passed through multiple devices to get the notification out. So we designed, prototyped, and built out devices over many phases to deploy in the rainforest, and featured here is our most recent deployments prototype, which you can see we deployed at the top of trees to reduce stealing, to maximize sun availability for solar panels, and also increase the ability to communicate through the dense rainforest and across the challenging terrain. And in January of 2025, we deployed our latest phase of development, which was 9 species nodes along a road that had both bellbirds and poaching concerns, and previously had been impenetrable for communication. And these 9 nodes had a BirdNet-based model for 3-wattle bellbird and chestnut mandible toucan on them. And here's a side profile of the road to emphasize the topographic challenge, with the reminder that on top of this green line would be dense primary forest. What we found was that with this new DuckLink mesh-based system, every node was reporting out to us across the test period, as seen here by the colorful dots. So that was really exciting. But due to a power-hungry model and a power-hungry Raspberry Pi board, we would have communications go offline during major storms, which was clearly not ideal. So our system did regenerate, though, and would continue reporting messages out afterwards, which was a success, but our ultimate goal is obviously no downtime for the system. And then this is our dashboard where we could see the message IDs coming through, which again was a great success. However, we found that the deployed heavy models were overconfident and were not performing as well as we needed them to. So this brings us to our 2026 improvements. And starting at the bottom, we're keeping our power management, our power management hardware, our data transmission, and also our communication system of the mesh-based DuckLink systems, because those have all proven to be of great success in the rainforest, and we're really happy with their performance. But major changes are coming from our model development, our board selection, and our battery optimization side. So first, we're going back to return to our roots, which is digital signal processing. So Dr. Garth Payne went back and identified key harmonics within the bellbird call and looked at unique vectors of change for the focal sounds. And this graph here is the bellbird call. So this way, digital signal processing is always running. And then if the features meet the requirements or the thresholds for the bellbird call identification, we send that information to the machine learning processor to be fed those extracted like DSP features to analyze the DSP output and then further refine the confidence in our detection. So this new system will significantly improve our detection confidence while also reducing battery power usage, because the machine learning will only be activated after it's met the DSP thresholds. So the feature output for our machine learning model will then be sent out via LoRa through our mesh network, and all still will perform in near real time. We've tested this new DSP approach against all common bird calls in the region and also anthropogenic sounds, and I've been getting successful results. So with this new identification approach of the DSP with the combination of machine learning, we were then able to do much more rigorous power testing and get weigh-in from leading officials in the board development space. And so we explored many like dual processor boards like Portenta and Nucleo, but are ultimately moving forward with the TeenC4 board for this July's deployment and employing intensive battery optimization strategies like underclocking and improving sleep mode functions to improve battery performance. So this was our deployment in January of 2025 that we shared in the previous slides. And this is our plan for July of 2026, so just 2 months from now, with a new fleet of species acoustic detectors. That's our strongest, most data-informed approach yet. And much like this bird's eye view of La Amistad International Park, there's much greater detail on all of our choices that our team is happy to talk through with others in similar positions. But our goal is to continue ironing out this pathway and then make it more broadly applicable to other ecosystems and species in need. And we're always receptive to ideas, collaborations, feedback, and sharing learned lessons. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you're interested or have any ideas. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kinley. That's a super great presentation on a super great bird. I invite every people who doesn't know the call of a great bird to just go on YouTube and listen to it. It's pretty crazy. Then, Ruthmery, can you tell us all about your fantastic Andean bears on the back of the Andes in Peru?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the invitation. Very happy to be here. I'm currently in the cloud forest, and today I'm going to talk you a bit about how we are using GPS and camera collars to document the hiding secret of the Andean bear. Andean bear is the only bear species that we have in South America, and it's a bear species which currently is vulnerable. So these Chris and Aiden both are Andean bears, same species, and using the same system. However, you can see how different are their strategies. So for a very long time, we've been tracking Andean bears using camera traps, SCAT. So we know where the bears are. However, we don't know in fine detail the behavior, know what they are doing on these landscapes. So our study site is in the eastern slope of the Andes at the entrance of Manu National Park in a valley called the Cochnipata. This valley is very incredible because you can see different habitat types in a very short distance that allow us to study how species are using the elevational gradients like the Andean bear and how they are responding to climate change. But at the same time, is one of the most challenging terrains. It's very steep. It's very cloudy most of the time. We are covered in fog. So even if we have the coordinate location of an individual, it's still very hard to see and to see what they are doing. No? So here the challenge is not the absence of the bear, but it's the invisibility of them. So what we are doing is we are using technology, and we are using GPS collar that are integrated with cameras. So this technology has three main things. One of them is they are taking hourly GPS location, so that will allow us to map the location of the bears. Then it has a HD camera, like a GoPro, that can allow us to have direct observation of the bears, and the 3-axial accelerometer data. So that part is very important because then we can synchronize the accelerometer data with the video clips, and we can have some inference of the behavior, not working on different models. So even if the collar doesn't have a camera, we can inference what the bear is doing across the time and across the years. So these collars we place for a years, and one of their challenges is still the battery. So when we put the camera collar, it only lasts between 3 to 4 months, and only taking a video clip of 15 seconds every hour. So, but even that, we got an incredible behavioral data. So this bear is Chris. We have Chris with 3 months with the collar. He was very wild. He used different habitat type across the elevational range. We record for first time cannibalism, potential infanticide, and also predation on arboreal monkeys like the woolly monkeys, behavior like feeding on soil, courtship, and on the tree canopy. For 10 events of mating, 8 of them were on the canopy. It was very incredible. And also feeding on different species of fruit, many things. So thanks to this technology, we're learning more about the secret life of the Andean bear. But also what the bears are teaching us, thanks to this technology, every bear is very different. While Chris was very wild on these 3 months, Adrian, this bear, spent the 3 months feeding on bamboo the whole time, and just the whole range was very small in a bamboo abundance forest. So again, it's showing how much variability exists between individuals within the same species, and that's something very important that we should take when we are doing conservation planning. So when we put together the 7 bears that we colored on the landscape, it's showing something very interesting, no? It's how they are using the landscape, no? They're teaching us they don't know about administrative or management boundaries. These bears are using national park, community lands, different land use management areas. So it's, yeah, how important it is to work in connectivity. But not only that, no, in average, these bears, adult males are using about 150 kilometers square of land. This is still quite big for this type of landscape. But if we see the blue bear, Ruru, he's a young bear, you see he's using about 600 kilometers square in a year and a half. So it's more than the average, but those bears are actually the ones are helping to continue, no, having the genetic diversity because they are mixing with other populations. And also the vertical connectivity. You know, you put the data from the colors across the elevation. They're using about 2,000 meters of elevation, moving from the high Puna grassland to the foothill of the Andes, and moving seeds across this elevation. So again, when we are thinking about conservation planning, we also need to think about vertical connectivity. No, it's not enough to protect some elevational band, but we need to have connectivity. And so technology is super important, but also the people on the field, no? We're still having some challenges testing these technologies on the field. I remember my first color didn't work, no? We waited 3 months, and the camera just didn't work, no? And so I think it's how important between developer engineers to work with us as we are on the field, and how important still go to the field and do some ground truthing, no? With all these footages and see why this bear is taking so long on this cluster, no? So I think only in this way we're going to have a real ecological data. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Ruthmery. It's super great to see the variety of technology used to explore the life of bears out there. Are there any questions for Ruthmery before we take a little break in between these super nice talks from our 3 speakers and the long term from Emily? I'm checking the chat. Some people are talking about the colors, super cool data. Prablu, you have a question. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Do you want to ask it live, or do you want me to take it? I guess then, Ruthmery, I will ask the question from Prablu, sorry. How would wearable antennas help? So I'm not sure if it's related to the channel. It's related to the question. So is there any antennas that you could put on the collar or on the bear to have more data or something?
So this collar already has an antenna, has the GPS antenna, the VHS, and also the accelerometer data, no? So the problem here is sometimes we lose data because the mountains have like barriers. So sometimes we lose the bear for a week, 2 weeks, even a month. So we don't know what's going on with them. But once they are in an open area, in the Puna grassland, all the data start uploading. But even that, on these areas where it was a big barrier, we don't have any geolocation data.
Cool, thank you. There is another question related to colors that is coming from Scott. Scott is asking, what type of reliability issues did you run into with colors? So is there, what were the other problem maybe after the terrain? Were there any other problem you found on your first color, especially you mentioned something?
I think the first color was the humidity, I guess. The camera, because we test here on the lab that the camera was working, was taking videos. Then we placed the color on the bear, and yes, the camera just didn't turn on. No? So it must be another technological issues behind them. But then we speak again, no, with the developers, and they fix the errors. And the second time the camera works, but In the third bird, the same thing, no? The camera works only for 2 months and a half and then it stopped working. So I think it's humidity issue. There's still a big problem on them, no? The same happened also with the drop-off mechanism, no? The good thing is now these collars have multiple ways to drop off, no? Including when you previously program, also you can send a remote command, or none of them works, then you have the other mechanism with VHS, no, to drop, and that's what's in our case. No, the two things didn't work, so the last thing worked to drop off the color.
Sure. Yeah. Highlighting the importance to communicate with the developers, but also the one on the ground. You have other question in the chat, Ruthmery, that I invite you to answer. It's coming from Martin, I think, from East Africa. Right. It's time for me to share my screen again and to take a little break between this talk and Emily's one. Right. So during this ad break, we would like to share a bit of information regarding one of our flagship program. Talia, would you like to share some information?
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So our latest round of applications for this program, Women in Conservation Technology, is open. Applications are open until Friday, and this is a program that focuses on early career women who are Tanzanian nationals working in conservation who are interested to build their skills and then also like technical skills, but also leadership and empowerment skills in a cohort-based program. It's a 6-month program that has 2 in-person workshops and then also virtual training. We run it in collaboration with our friends at the Grumeti Fund and with support from the JRS Biodiversity Foundation. So this is a return of a program that took a break last year, but we're really excited about it. This is going to be our 4th cohort. So if anyone has folks in their network who you think could be a good fit for this, again, women in the relatively early career stages, please spread the word and let them know, and encourage them to get their applications in by Friday or reach out to us if that deadline is a challenge. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Right. Our next item is coming from our platform team. I know Jakes is here. I will talk on his behalf because we are more than happy to share that the platform is now multilingual. We just released the translation feature on WILDLABS, I think last week. You are now and starting with Spanish. And so to our Latin communities, we are now happy to tell you that you can engage in the language of your choice. And this is the first edition. Spanish is the first edition of many to come. Hopefully the next one will be French and some other major language such as Swahili. So we are very, very pleased to tell you that you can use the platform in whatever language you want, with some AI features that you are able to explore. I think Jake will put the guidance in the chat. So if you have any question or any remarks related to this translation, please come back to the team and tell us what you think about that. Right, and the last community maybe information that I wanted to share. It's a very, very rapid one because Talia, there is something happening just after this call, right?
Yes, starting immediately after, just to flag, there's a group meetup from the animal movement group on WILDLABS that's going to focus on R packages, data, and code integration in animal movement ecology. So they have some really great speakers lined up. And in case you want to do a little more community connection, you can hop directly on that call after this.
Cool. So now it's quiz time. Time for you to play a bit. And the first question of this quiz is, what is the quiz about and what it will be about? You have 4 options. You are welcome to put your answer in the chat. Is this quiz going to be on bird migration? Is this quiz going to be on pollen migration? Is this quiz going to be on whale migration? Is this quiz going to be on scientist migration? And I see that some people are knowing me a bit because, of course, if I am being asked to do a quiz, it will be on birds because I'm a bit of a birder. Right. First question related to bird migration. What is the longest journey? So you have this Arctic tern that holds the super nice record for the longest migration. According to you, approximately how many kilometers does an Arctic tern travel annually during its round trip between the Arctic and the Antarctic? A, between 20 and 45, B, between 46 and 70, C, between 71 and 90, or D, way too much to be calculated? A lot of A, some people knowing the distance between the Arctic and the Antarctic, a couple of B's, some C's from Ruthmery, Brandon. No, not a specific trend. Maybe recently more C's. And for the people click on C's, they were right. These crazy birds following the wind pattern are doing up to 90,000 kilometers. That's just a crazy data to know. But there is another crazier record. Which bird species is known for the longest recording non-stop flight over 13,000 kilometers across the Pacific Ocean without landing to feed or rest? On the top left, A, the bar-tailed godwit. On the top right, B, the wandering albatross. On the bottom left, C, the peregrine falcon. Or on the bottom right, D, the very good flying bird. A lot of bees this time. Super interesting. I think that was the whole purpose of the trap, right? Because wandering albatross, even if they are known to be able to do thousands of kilometers, at least 1,000 kilometers per day without landing on the sea, the bar-tailed godwit hold this record. It flies from Alaska to New Zealand in approximately 11 days. And if you have a hurricane or a storm, which is more and more common with global change, climate change, it can affect the physical condition, and they start to sort of digest their own muscles. It's not a good story if it lasts more than 11 days. Another record, or at least another cool data, birds migrate over the Himalayas, such as like the bar-headed goose that you have in photo, and they face, of course, extreme hypoxia, where there is less than 50% of the oxygen that we have on sea level. What physiological adaptation helps them fly where oxygen is 50% less abundant? A, storing oxygen in their hollow bones. B, higher affinity to their hemoglobin to oxygen. C, the ability to breathe through their skin, breathe to the skin. D, they don't go over the Himalayas, they build a tunnel. Okay, this time we have scientists. There is no question. The B and the hemoglobin adaptation is, of course, the one that helps. Probably they could run a marathon or many marathons at a time, going under 2 hours, maybe too, but it's their physiological adaptation. Right, the V formation now. Maybe some of you have seen this V formation from geese or cranes, but what are they made for? A, to defend against aerial predators. B, to facilitate visual communication. C, to take advantage of upwash created by the bird in front. Or D, to celebrate the victory of the MBFC, Migrating Bird Football Club, against the NBMFC, which is obvious. C, B, D, C, B. Oh, this one is tied between B and C. Well, because I also like sports, I took this because it's for the upwash that it creates. As for Formula One or cyclism, you have this phenomenon of aspiration, we call it in French, that they use. So it's for energy efficiency and management. The starting signal, why migration starts in April? So what is the primary external parameter that triggers the hormonal changes for birds to begin migration? A sudden drop in temperature in their wintering ground. B, changes in photoperiod, their length. C, the depletion of local food resource. D, the parents calling for the 20th time to come for dinner. A lot of B. Okay, I'm surprised that is this the best answer, because yeah, it's always the parent, because photoperiod is very well known to be the phenomenon indeed in America, and we are still exploring other parameters in other countries. But yeah, the photoperiod is the one that is the most stable and predictable environmental cue for biological clocks. And I think it's my last question, and I had to put a bit of technology. How do you monitor bird migration? Which of these technology can be used to gather migration data? A, telemetry. B, acoustic monitoring. C, radar. D, all of the above. Yeah, this one I could not make the fun, because D is the answer, as you all have guessed. So thank you very much, everyone, for having played this quiz. Take a bit of a breathing room. And now we are going to hear from Emily about their talk they have given at ICTC about building a nice data set for AI, which I think is an important feature to have in many of the data sources we deal with. Emily, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Adrian. Okay, well, hi, everyone. As Adrian said, I'm going to be talking about designing effective training data sets for custom AI models. My name is Emily Dorne, and I'm a principal data scientist at Driven Data. Just a quick introduction. Driven Data is a data science and machine learning consultancy in the social impact space. This means that we work with nonprofits, research groups, governments, and really help them leverage the tools of data science and AI to do their work more effectively. We work across a lot of different subject matter domains, but we've been working in the conservation space for the last 8 years. We've run a number of online machine learning competitions in this space, doing species classification, depth estimation, individual re-ID. We've carried some of that work forward into open source packages to make it easy to run these models and code. And then we've also built tools like Zomba Cloud, which is what we're probably most known for in this space. So Zomba Cloud is a cloud application that lets you train and run machine learning models without writing any code. It's focused on species classification and works for both videos and images. So a couple of distinguishing features for Zomba Cloud. We have native video support. We actually got our start working with animal behaviorists who are exclusively working with videos. And then we also feature custom model training, again, without the need to actually write any code yourself. So why do we need custom model training? Largely due to just the really wide variety and diversity in camera trap data. As we all know, camera traps are used all over the place. We study different habitats, from jungles to savannas to underwater. We study different things, from mammals to insects to even weather patterns. And even when we're looking at the same thing, we might be using different levels of granularity, different taxonomic ranks. So what is to one person an antelope is to another person a red forest duiker. And so it's really hard to have just a single or even small set of pre-trained models to really capture the diversity that we see in conservation workflows. So the goal of custom model training is really to support conservationists in having models that are specifically designed for their use case. On Zomba Cloud, this is just a couple of screenshots to give you a sense of what this looks like. You upload images and labels, you click a button to kick off model training in the cloud, you go about your day, get some coffee, we'll send you an email when your model is done and ready for use in Zomba Cloud. So on the one hand, you might say, okay, so we have custom model training solved. Why have this talk? And the reason why I wanted to talk about the kind of more upstream step, which is what is the data that you actually put in when you're training a custom model? Because what is in your training data set really has a big impact on the ultimate performance of your model. So this was really the basic premise behind why I wanted to give this talk at ICTC. This notion that we know that custom species classification models are really important. We have tools that enable conservationists to train these custom models without needing programming experience. But what's in your training data has a really big downstream impact on the utility of your model. And so I wanted to kind of approach this talk really addressing some of the FAQs that we get from Zomba Cloud around how much data do I need? How many different label classes can I have? Should my label classes be balanced, or should I use the empirical distribution of what I've kind of observed in my deployment? So I wanted to give some strategies for creating effective training data sets to really help set practitioners up for success. So I want to talk briefly about kind of 5 strategies for training data set creation. Again, the basic premise here is that we have a full data set. This is what's come in. We've had our camera traps out, we've collected all of our SD cards, and now we're saying of that full data set, which images or videos are we selecting into our training data? So the first strategy here is including all the labels that you'll need. So your model is only going to learn the labels that you provide it. If your model has never seen a giraffe in training, it's not going to know it if you show it a giraffe in the future. So when we talk about including the label classes, we're talking about what are basically the outputs that you want your model to predict. Recommend aiming for 20 or under total classes is a good ballpark to start. This is largely just because the more output classes you have, the harder the problem is for the model, generally speaking. Your labels are also going to depend on your use case. And so, as I was saying before, one person might want to group all the antelopes together, another might want to differentiate between blue duikers and red forest duikers. And so you want to think about your data, what is the level of granularity that you need, and then use that to determine what are those output classes that you want, and then making sure that you have examples for each of those in your training data. The second strategy is probably the most important one. It's really important to make your training data set representative. And what we mean by this is that your training data should capture the variation in your overall data. So if your training data doesn't represent that real world variation, your model is not going to do as well. It might fail or just underperform on new or underrepresented scenarios. So I want to just give you a couple of visuals when we talk about what does representation mean? How do we think about this? And I'm going to do it with kind of not images or videos right now. We're just going to do it with shapes and colors. So here's an example where, here's our full data set. We've got circles and triangles. And then on the right-hand side, we've got this training data. And now we have this question of, is our training data here representative? So we'd look at what is the key dimension on which this data set varies, and that's shape. And so we've got circles and triangles, and we've got those represented both in the training data. So we'd say, yes, the training data includes all the shapes from the full data set. If our shapes here actually represent species, we've got cats and dogs, we can feel good that our model is going to learn both cats and dogs. It's going to learn both species. But oftentimes we have, more than one source of variation. So here I've added another dimension, shape and border width. And if we look at this in our training data and we say, is our training data representative of our full data set? The answer is no, because we don't have any examples of that thicker border width. And so here, we might pretend that border width actually means day and nighttime videos. So here in our training data, we only have daytime videos. We haven't shown the model any nighttime videos. So our model is going to underperform on those nighttime videos, right? We haven't captured both sources of variation in our training data. And lastly, to make it a little bit more complex, here's an example where we've got, again, 2 dimensions, 2 sources of variation, shape and color. And if we look at our training data and we say, okay, we've got both yellow and blue, and we've got both circles and triangles, aren't we good to go? And the answer here is actually no, because we haven't captured any of the joint variation. So all of our circles are yellow and all of our triangles are blue. And so imagine that instead of yellow and blue, this is actually summer and winter. And so now we've got cats only in summer and dogs only in winter. What's going to happen is that the model, if it sees something in winter, it's going to say, oh, that's a dog, because it has never learned that actually both cats and dogs can be present in that season. And so what the model learns is that species and season are now tightly linked rather than independent features. And so when you're thinking about how to make your data set representative, you're looking not only at kind of those overall sources of variation, but also that joint variation where possible. So this might sound like a lot or hard to do. And so the way to think about this is basically identify some of the key sources of variation in your data set. And then you can either intentionally sample within those through a tool like stratified sampling, or you can randomly sample your data and then plot distributions and do some of these visual checks, like I'm showing you on the right-hand side, where we're looking at, the counts of videos in the different splits across the different seasons. So common sources of variation that you might want to think about are things like location. Maybe you have different countries, national parks, transects represented in your data set. You might have different time of day. What are these things that you know from the metadata that you can do some of these checks on to say, yes, I've included daytime and nighttime videos. I've included, videos from different times in the year. I've included videos with different backgrounds, so different habitats, different vegetations, different camera angles. And that's really going to help your training data set be representative. The third strategy here is that more data is generally better. Computer vision models learn by seeing lots of examples and learning patterns, and so you want to give your model lots of examples to learn from. There's no magic number here. A reasonable default is at least 100 examples per class. This is a graph here where we were basically training the same model, but with increasing data set sizes. So here we took 5 examples per species and plotted the accuracy on a holdout set. And then we took 10 examples per species and plotted the accuracy on the holdout set, 20, 100, and 500. And you start to see that accuracy kind of getting diminishing returns post 100 examples. So this is just a good kind of starting heuristic. Again, more data is generally better, but this is a good starting point. I will say that harder problems do require more data. So common challenges that increase the difficulty for correct classification are things like small size animals like rodents, high occlusion or camouflage, nocturnal, low contrast. Even if you have a really large number of label classes in your data set, as I said before, that's a harder problem. Or if you have really high similarity between label classes that you are trying to differentiate, again, more data is going to be helpful there. So this is going to be context specific. Obviously, if you are a lucky duck that has data that looks like this and you've got clear, high contrast, large animals, you're going to need less data. I imagine that this probably isn't you. Mostly, I just wanted to show you some cool images here. We all know that our data looks a lot more like this. All right. Fourth strategy, give your model diverse examples to learn from. You want to include different views of the animal in different locations, time of day, time of year, camera angle, lighting conditions. It's really this diversity of views that helps a model learn to generalize. So if you have 10 captures of the same animal that look really different, this is a lot more helpful to your model than having, say, 100 captures from bursts where those images look super, super similar. So on the right-hand side, I'm showing you different variation, right? We've got different views of the animal. We've got some nighttime ones. We've got the animal in different parts of the screen. This is the sort of kind of diversity that you want to include even within a given label class. One note on data quality here, if you can't tell what an animal is, don't expect the model to be able to either. So you want to include both easy and hard cases, but avoid impossible cases like totally washed out images, things that are totally dark, corrupted images, etc. Last strategy here is try and then iterate. It's really important to evaluate your trained model on a holdout set and then use that information to iterate on your training data set. There is no single strategy that will always result in the most accurate model. If there were, I probably wouldn't be giving you this talk. We just have the list of things to do. So as models are trained, as I was saying, you want to evaluate them on data that was not used in training. You want your holdout set to include, again, those key sources of variation, so it should give you a representative idea of real-world performance. Common proportions for splitting up your full data set, you take 60% for train, 20% for validation, and 20% for that holdout set. The goal of looking at the holdout set and evaluating the model on that is really to see where is your model performing well and where is it performing poorly. There are lots of different metrics that are worth looking at here. I'm not going to go into those in detail today, but the idea being that like species or label class level metrics are helpful to say where are places where my model is doing well and where is it doing poorly. So in this example, like I might look at, domestic cats and say, okay, well, we're only capturing 8% of cats in that are present in the data. But when we think it's a cat, we're right 100% of the time. And so this is a place where we probably need to include more data so that our model can get better at actually finding those cats because there are so many cats that we're not seeing. That said, there are trade-offs in adding more data. So if you improve one class in isolation, this can degrade performance on other classes if your data set becomes heavily imbalanced. So if you say, I want my model to get better at giraffes, and you add 1,000 photos of giraffes, your model's performance is probably going to drop significantly as it's going to overfit to those giraffes and forget those prior distinctions. So that said, a uniform distribution is a reasonable place to start, and then basically see the type of errors that the model is making. You can add more data for worse performing classes and then basically evaluate whether accuracy for that one species is trading off against another. So where does this leave us? In short, there's no single recipe that is going to work in every case. That said, there are some same defaults. You want to give your model enough data to learn from. Start with around 100 examples per label class. Diverse data, again, matters more than total count. You want to prioritize that representativeness in your training data. So try to identify 3 to 5 main sources of real-world variation and check that those are well represented in your splits. And then if at first you don't succeed, try again, evaluate the model on the whole data set, use the cases where it does poorly to inform iterations on the training data set. And lastly, I just wanted to conclude with a couple reflections from ICTC. This talk was really well attended, and I think that spoke to just the value of custom models. There is strong sentiment that off-the-shelf species classification models just aren't sufficient for the diversity of camera trap data. And so I think that this talk resonated with folks because they're trying to figure out how do I actually create the models that are going to work for my use cases. There was also a lot of excitement in using custom models in new environments where the data looks very different, so underwater, insects. And so I think it might be interesting to think about some pre-trained base models in those environments because that's going to accelerate the custom models and allow people to provide less data than if they're trying to fine-tune a land model for underwater, for example. And lastly, I think that one of the other sentiments we heard is that it can be hard for practitioners to know what models exist and what models are worth trying as a starting point before they decide to train a custom model. There's a lot of models and tools in this space, and so a model inventory that can document and allow people to find what models to try out and where they can run them may be very helpful. So with that, I will conclude. Thank you all so much. And if you want to try out Zomba Cloud today, you can go to zombacloud.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Emily. I really find this talk didactic, and we understand why it was so well attended at ICTC because, as you mentioned, there is a need for adaptation to the context. Are there any question in the chat? I'm sure they are. At least I have thousands. Yeah, they are. Prabhu is asking about the origin of data to train the model, wondering if we can extract data from open source portals such as GBIF, iNaturalist, or the Indian Biodiversity Portal. Emily, what would you answer to Prabhu?
The idea being, can we use data that's already on
data that is open to train this model?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the main thing is you want the data that you're training on to look similar to data that you're going to be using for inference. So if you're training on data that looks totally different, that's not going to help you with your downstream cases. But if there's data that exists that is on similar species or habitats, and you're using that to augment the data that you've collected, absolutely, that's data that can be used, assuming that licensing and all of those permissions are set up to do so.
Indeed, yeah, the permission are important. And I think I would take the opposite, not the opposite, but a complementary answer on when you train a data set, or you made a data set full of label that is specific, don't hesitate to share it widely. It's important for the community to have the specificity you have, so we can like train bigger problem or on bigger problem for bigger areas. So don't hesitate to share your data and easier openly on these portals. There is another question from Joshua. Yeah, I think we have 1 minute left. Joshua is asking, where do you draw the line on the number of variation to include? For example, rain and time of the day will change the color and visibility. How much can be done in pre-processing or augmenting data?
Yeah, so part of this is kind of trial and error of seeing, I was recommending starting with like 3 to 5 of the main sources of variation. So like daytime and nighttime look really different. So that's a really important one. I think different like backgrounds again is a big one. And then it's looking at the sorts of errors that your model is making. And so if you're saying, hey, we're doing really badly anytime it's raining, that's a really good indicator that we want to make sure that we're capturing weather variation where we can. I tend to try to start with the sources of variation that you can identify from just the metadata alone, because it's otherwise you have to go through the whole process of labeling to then be able to say, here's the weather that's happening in each of those examples. So start with kind of what you can get automatically, and then use that review process to then inform that next iteration.
Great. Thank you so much, Emily, and thank you to all our speakers today. I think it was a super good reflection of some of the very well-attended talks at ICTC. We hope to reconvene other variety hours where we highlight what happened there. This is the end of today's variety hour, but it's not the end of the call. You are welcome to stay for what we call the real happy hour, where you will have less of a formal chat. It won't be recorded, and you can ask your question directly to the speaker or take the time to interact on any other topic that they are burning to you. So thank you all for attending today, and let's move on to the happy hour. Bye-bye.